Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this much anticipated program. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. Uh, just a couple of quick introductory points. First, we want to thank our sponsor and host for today, the wonderful HSBC Bank, who supports us always throughout the year and with good support, good friendship, and good advice. So we welcome their sponsorship. Um, we've muted everybody's sound and video, but every now and then somebody manages to get on the screen. If you see yourself on the screen, could you please, if possible, take yourself off? I've got one right now. Take yourself off the screen. The only people you should be seeing are the panelists and myself. There is a chat button down the bottom. You'll see it down there. Feel free to throw a question in there as it comes up, and I'll be watching it from time to time, and I'll pose those questions to our panelists as we go through the program. And then the final question I always get, are we recording today's program? Yes, we are. We will send you out a recording link this afternoon or tomorrow. Look for something called a Lux Stream, which will be in your inboxes. If it's not there, it's probably in your spam folder, but that will have the recording link. So why today's program? One of the questions that we're going to ask the panelists at the end of the session is, would you advise your kids, your children, to become realtors? And it'll be interesting to see what their response is going to be. But the reason I pose it that way is that there's a general feeling that the industry is going through a period of exceptional change right now, unquestionably at both the brokerage level, at the industry level, and also at the agent level. So let me just read the preamble, and this will sort of set up where we are today. Never before has the real estate industry experienced the degree of disruption and upheaval that we're witnessing. Digital platforms have already transformed the operational landscape. The impending change that will come with the adoption of AI will create a brave new world where sales, marketing, communications, and database manipulation will be executed with a degree of sophistication that will be freely available all the way down to the singular agent level. Challenges to reigning authority and practice, and there you want to think about the changes at the NAR right now, the whole issue of commission-related lawsuits, are but a growing manifestation of what we can expect as the industry, like water, seeks to find its own level and its own balance. So whether one views the glass as half full or half empty, and let me just make a personal statement. In this instance, I'm a half full person. There can be no doubt that the realtor will continue to play a fundamental and necessary role in bringing buyer and seller together. The big question is, what will the new breed of realtor look like, and what will it take to survive and to succeed? So we're honored today to have brought together a panel of four very experienced, wise influentials who know this business now and where it's going. In alphabetical order, KAMINI Lane, President and CEO of Coldwell Banker Realty, former President of Sotheby's International Realty. Mark McLAUGHLIN, many of you will know Mark in the Bay Area, Chief Real Estate Strategist for Compass, former President of Compass California, and former CEO of Pacific Union International. Joe RATH, who is the Senior Director of Brokerage Operations and Head of Industry Relations at Redfin. And Brian SOLIS, Head of Global Innovation at ServiceNow. He's also a renowned digital futurist, anthropologist, one of the world's leading thinkers in the future of industries and emerging technologies, and an 8-time bestseller author. And I believe he's got a new book coming out in April called Mindshift: How to Become Tomorrow's Leader. Today, panel, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you. I'm going to ask the same question of all four of you at the start. I'm just looking for the headlines here. In broad strokes, what's the state of the residential real estate industry today? What are you feeling today? Joe, I'm going to start with you, and you're on mute. Kick us off.
Sure. Well, a lot of uncertainty, certainly in watching the market news. And I think that people's mind immediately goes to just what's going on in the market, and certainly watching interest rates. It feels like a March rate reduction's off the table. But, we've dealt with uncertainty really now for the last 5 or 6 years. So what's always impressed me is just our best agents. They know that they're the ones that are sought after to talk about what's going on in the market, and they are self-aware enough to be able to say, I can win in any market. And so right now it's the beginning of the year still. So it's a lot of optimism about what the year might hold. And I feel like everybody at least got through last year and they're feeling like even if things are tight again this year, especially from an inventory perspective, they're more optimistic than they were coming out of last year.
Joe, quick follow-up. What was last year like in your opinion?
It was tough. It's been tough, but it's really, competing and really just riding the waves of interest rates. And I feel like the big difference between this year and last year is really like the normalization of what might be perceived as higher interest rates. So I think that on the ride up from the beginning of the year in 2023, from 4% interest rates, 5%, and then getting all the way up into 7 and 8% rates, riding that and just watching that go up was certainly not a pleasant experience for anyone that was on the sidelines and agents alike. Whereas if you can find a 6% or so rate, that just might be the new normal, and agents are willing to say like, okay, now my buyers are coming off the sidelines because they're not waiting anymore for rates to go back down to 3 and 4%.
But last year, tough year, yes?
Absolutely.
All right. KAMINI, same question.
Yeah, I mean,
What's the state right now?
last year, tough year, and understatement, right? Last year was the worst housing market in 30 years. And, I think that I definitely agree with a lot of what Joe said. I think when you look at, when you sort of zoom out and look at the consumer environment, I think people are nervous. They continue to be nervous because of all of the uncertainty in the world, whether you're talking about the housing market specifically, or interest rates, or just the macroeconomic environment, the political landscape, the fact that we're in an election year. I also think that people are more demanding now than ever before, right? We have a compounding of, what some people call the Amazon effect, just the fact that consumers expect instant gratification. They expect a high level of service delivery. They have, an unlimited amount of data information at their fingertips. So they expect a lot for their time and their money. And, the real estate industry is no exception. So whatever it is that they're spending time on, they expect a lot from it. Now, I do think that going into 2024, there's a bit of a normalization, not only of high interest rates, but just of that challenging market in general, right? I think consumers are starting to understand that, the price increase levels that we saw back post-pandemic are no longer realistic. So, on the sell side, folks are starting to normalize their expectations for the value of their home. Then buyers are starting to normalize their budgets to account for higher interest rates. So I do think that you're going to see a lot of folks who've been sitting on the sidelines just waiting for a sense of certainty that is not going to come. You're going to see those folks getting off the sidelines, whether it is listing a house for financial reasons or personal reasons. I think you're going to see folks who start to actually move here, and a little bit of a loosening of the lock-in effect that we've seen over the last year or so.
Okay. Mark, throw the same question to you.
Well, coming off of 2021, where we sold over 6 million homes in the US, and last year just barely over 4 million, if you think it was a tough year, it's because, in fact, it was. I think the two significant things that real estate professionals need to engage with right now is what I call managing noise. And the noise in our industry can relate to the DOJ, it can relate to interest rates, things like that. But the noise of our clients is completely different. Up until the 31st of October, our clients didn't know the DOJ and all these suits were happening. They were just looking to buy and sell homes. So we as professionals need to remember that it's not our noise we need to manage, it's our clients' noise. And less than 12 months ago from right now, we were anticipating Silicon Valley Bank failure, followed by First Republic, followed by Signature. Now we have the commercial real estate crunch going on regional banks, and the New York bank is the one that bought Signature Bank. So there's a lot of noise in the industry that we as real estate professionals have to manage.
Brian, you're not an industry insider. You're not a realtor, so you come with clean hands to the conversation. But how do you see it as an objective outsider looking in?
Alf, when's the last time we all got together? How many years ago was that?
It was 2016. We went back and looked at that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that the only things we got wrong were a pandemic and bank failures. But everything else seems to be on track. And so we think about 10 years out from now, in a world that's now becoming AI first, in a place where people are becoming augmented. We have an increasing class of more discerning and sophisticated consumer on the horizon. So where I see things now is it's wild. I mean, even though we talked about it a long time ago, the reality is this, that uncertainty is now the new normal. And black swan events are just a given. And I think we have to start planning for that. You know, at the end of the day, my work wasn't as much as a demand as it is like it is now, because there was no market for futures because times were good all of the time. But in reality, a futurist doesn't predict the future. They just scenario plan. You know, what happens if, and what's our contingency plan? What's our strategy? Where do our investments need to go? And so the way I see things now is it's only going to become more difficult, but also awesome at the same time. The minute those interest rates goes down, we're going to see all kinds of frenzies out there. I know, for example, I'm trying to beat that. I want to buy now and refinance later, but these are certainly going to be interesting and uncertain times to continue.
But Brian, you see a lot of industries. Where do you place the real estate industry? What's the complexion of it?
The real estate industry is, you know, to be honest, it has fascinated me and how bulletproof it's been for a long time against so much disruption, going to Web 1.0, then mobile, and then all of this, you know, in terms of internet competitors. And it's been incredibly resilient, but it was inevitable that disruption was coming. It's coming for every single industry. It's just hard to plan for that when times are good. So this is the time, though, to really start thinking about how do we rethink the role of an agent, the role of everybody in the real estate industry for times that are going to continue to change and evolve. You know, Mark and I had the pleasure of meeting one another in San Diego recently, and we had talked about the lawsuits and the potential change coming to commission structures. And, you know, I remember Mark saying, you know, look, good people will find a way to add value to a transaction, and that transaction is valuable. And I think at the end of the day, people just want help. I don't know if agents realize this or not, but they were going to the internet. Consumers were going to the internet well before AI. They're only going to continue to go to the internet now in the capacity that AI can mimic the smartest human beings and even smarter than human beings in the planet. So that's what I would start planning for now, is how do I add value in a world where AI is smarter than me?
You don't believe real estate agents will ever disappear, correct?
I don't think great real estate agents should disappear, just like I don't think great doctors should disappear.
It's not the question I asked.
Real estate agents, below average and mediocre real estate agents will not be around.
Got it. Mark, back to you. The industry. Biggest threat, biggest opportunity.
Well, the biggest threat is change, I believe. And our profession does not enjoy change. We have to change our behaviors in a pretty significant way right now, and focus on the buy side of the trade like we have never done before. The industry has invested hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars into the listing presentation and the listing agreement, but a fraction of that, a tiny fraction of that, into the buy side of the trade. So we are going to have to polish our value proposition and statements to clients for them to respect and be willing to pay our fees. And I agree with Brian. The good will become great, and the marginal will fade away.
But by the way, Mark, how would you rephrase that value proposition to the client?
Well, I think the client has demonstrated for decades that they value advice over discount in a sort of a luxury category or a less than homogenized housing stock. And so articulating your value proposition is, you know, by engaging with me, you're going to get my local knowledge, my advice, my recommendations, and more than anything else, what the real estate professional relationship trades on is trust. The clients trust the real estate professional, and they want to go through the transaction with them because of that. And I have not seen a hashtag, a .com, or an @ symbol replace trust.
Same question. So again, so the biggest threat is what, Mark? Headline?
Complacency, the change, not being incredibly reactive to the change to the buy side of the trade.
And the biggest opportunity?
Is doing so and getting more than your fair share.
Okay. KAMINI, same question to you. Biggest threat, biggest opportunity.
Yeah, I think, I would agree with Mark that the biggest threat is not just change, but the pace of change. I think the pace of change that we've seen over the last couple of years is just going to accelerate. And I think it's incredibly important that our agents stay ahead of that pace of change, right? That they stay ahead of technology innovations that can actually help them do a better job, that they don't recede in the background and become afraid of change, right? That they understand that the issue is not for example, if you're talking about the pace of change of technology, it is not that AI will replace people. It is that people who use AI will replace people who do not use AI. And so I think the biggest threat is the pace of change, and we really need to make sure that our agents are staying ahead of that change. And I think from an opportunity perspective, really is getting down to understanding tomorrow's home buyer, right? Whether that is, as a brokerage leader, making sure that we are doubling down on diversity, right? Understanding that the diverse homeowner is the homeowner of the future. For example, Latino homeownership increased almost 50% in the last couple of years. Or, Gen X and millennial home buyers who are set to inherit $84 trillion in the next 20-something years. So the biggest opportunity is really making sure that you're an agent who's forming contextually relevant relationships with the future homeowner.
Joe, same question again.
I was wrestling with this one a little bit. My real answer is really too many agents. We talked a little bit about the new normal, about what interest rates could be, but the other new normal is really around inventory constraints. And as long as that is a new normal, there are too many agents for that many houses for sale. And I think it's like the industry struggled with this for a long time. But I think it's also at the same time an opportunity for it's a bad time to be a bad agent. It's a really great time to be a good agent. And to define that value proposition and to say now, maybe even especially coming out of these lawsuits where buyers are going to start shopping around based on experience level, and yes, and sometimes costs. We're at Redfin. Redfin exists to give customers a better deal. But at the same time, it should be more buyer choice.
Brian, anything to add to this conversation?
No, but I do want to validate the point about trust. Since COVID, the consumer has not only become more connected, but also more conscious. And a lot of that we can get into a conversation at a later date, has to do with values. And trust became the #1 thing consumers said that they wanted to see from business transformation post-COVID. And that's a pretty big deal.
So as an outsider, your interpretation to the realtor would be?
Experience is one thing, but as an outsider, it's trust and real estate agents are not synonymous. And I think that the industry itself has some work to do.
We'll come back to that. Let's Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to sort of double down on what Brian's saying. Trust is earned over time. It's not a given. It's small incremental steps in a process with a client, builds on trust, and then trust is like a loyalty card that a client gives to the real estate professional. And everybody's chasing that loyalty card, but only the consumer can hand it out, and only the consumer can take it away.
And if I can
But
add
Mark,
to that as well, I think, in our industry, there has to be an up-leveling of how to earn that trust, right? And an understanding when you're talking about what is for most people, the most important financial transaction of their lives, that trust has to be earned through expertise. It has to be earned through valuable advice, right? It has to be earned through being an irreplaceable part of that journey and of that transaction. And I think that going back to talking about opportunities, I think that is a really critical opportunity for real estate agents as Joe said, it's going to be a bad time to be a bad agent and a good time to be a good agent. And frankly, post-pandemic, homes were selling themselves, and that's not happening anymore. So I think our agents are going to have to really think about, how are you earning trust and what are you bringing to the table in order to earn that trust?
And Kamini, I still want the manifestation of that. I understand the principle, but every word I've heard today, I've heard before by every other agent in the Bay Area. Trust, experience, we know the market, we know the neighborhood, all that stuff. Again, going forward next 10 years, what does the manifestation of that trust look like? Because I don't have a feel for it yet.
I'll jump in there. You know what
Please.
my local agents think is earning trust? Putting free notepads on my doorstep to try to get me to remember their name when I decide to sell my house. Just because you know the neighborhood doesn't mean you know me. And I don't think I've ever dealt with an agent that really tried to get to know me, or my aspirations, or my family values, or remember any of that, post transaction. There's trust is, as Mark said, it's earned. But let me tell you, some of the best people I see in the game today are navigating all of this uncertainty on TikTok or Instagram or on Medium or on their blogs, helping to explain what high interest rates mean, helping to explain how home ownership is possible when it seems impossible. Like that, you're earning trust before the transaction's even going to appear. And there are, coming back to Mark's point about noise, there is not enough signal in terms of that clarity, yet the clarity exists. It's not like you can't buy or sell a home today.
Let me, I want to just wrap up the industry. I want to get into the agent in more detail, but let me just wrap up some industry stuff quickly. I'm going to throw out the subject, and anybody just give me some quick feedback. Mortgage rates for 24, what's going to happen? Anybody?
I think they're, going to go down. But I think whatever happens, consumers are getting more unattached to the idea of a 2 or 3% rate. And I think that that's going to benefit the industry regardless.
Anything to add to that? Anybody else?
No, March Fed rate cut is off the table. And I think that's what we were optimistic for, but I agree that rates will still decrease by the end of the year.
Down to what, Joe?
Let's say another point, or what are we at now? 7? I think it'll be probably around 5.5%, 6%.
Anybody else?
I think what we need to keep in mind with the conversation around rates is the Fed has already demonstrated that they don't care about the housing market, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken rates up the way that they did.
Right.
And so if they're going to bring rates back down, you have to ask the question, why? And the only reason they're going to bring rates down is to relieve pain in the system. So while we may get some relief in interest rates this year, and maybe it is the point that Joe references, or the one, the 1%ers that Joe references, it's going to be offset by other pains coming from the regional banks and commercial real estate is what they're going to be trying to soften the blow. And a lot of our clients that buy and sell homes work in both those industries.
Got it. The whole thing that's going on with NAR right now, and then you've got Mauricio Umensky starting a new organization over here. Does that mean anything to us as realtors, or do we just move on? Anybody?
I'll jump in. I think it means a lot. I think the greatest disservice that NAR has done over the years is a real estate professional does not have the freedom of choice as to whether or not they want to join NAR or not. Because if they don't join NAR, they can't be in their local state chapter and their local chapter, which controls the MLS in most cases. So we can't vote with our feet that we don't want to be part of NAR. And I think that choice is definitely coming. I spoke with Jason last week about it. And I think that choice will come soon.
Anything else to add? Anybody else?
I mean, there's so much to what is going on with NAR, right? I think I'd be remiss not to bring up the harassment allegations and just the fact that, it is yet another data point of the fact that, the real estate industry is one with that, agents, over 60% of agents are female. Representation at the top does not mirror troops on the ground, and it's still an extremely difficult environment for women to thrive in, all the way to the organization that's supposed to be representing the women in the field and all the people in the field. So clearly it's shining a spotlight on the work that needs to be done to make the real estate industry a profession where women really can thrive and feel safe.
the traditional commission system, 5, 6, whatever it is %, that's shattered, correct? That's gone.
No,
Kamini,
No.
Mark,
go ahead, Kamini.
Kamini, you've got the floor.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, one of the first things that Mark said is that people have demonstrated that they value advice over discounting, right? I don't, and I think that the conversation has totally left out the fact that consumers have always been able to negotiate a commission. This has always been true, right? And real estate agents have always been able to walk away from a transaction where they're not getting paid what they feel is a fair price for the value that they're bringing. So no, I don't agree that 5 and 6% commissions are off the table. I think it's just a question of the agent being able to prove their value. What am I charging? What am I bringing to the table for what am I charging?
Joe, you want to comment on that?
I really agree with Kamini there too, but I do think back to an earlier point that buyer's agents are going to start competing on price. Actually, we're already starting to see that happen too. And even listing agents, of course, the seller gets to decide what buyer broker compensation looks like. But we're seeing models even across California that are experimenting with $0, $500, 1% buyer broker compensation. So I don't know how widespread that's going to be. It could be 1% of transactions. It could end up being 10% of transactions, but I don't think it's accurate to say that something's not changing there.
Well, but
Mark?
let's look at some facts. The state of Washington has been operating under the zero to the buy side of the trade for 4 years now. 4 years. The consumer has had the ability to tell the professional, I want to offer zero to the buy side. Something like 95% of the listings in the last 4 years have a buy side fee, and something like 89% of them are 2 points or higher. So the industry has sort of sought out and found its own level, is that it's in the seller's best interest to offer the buy side of the trade a fee, and market seems to be well above 2%.
So you're not seeing any major disruption of the commission structure as we've grown to know it?
The major disruption is like forcing or encouraging the agent to change their behavior. That is painful for them. It's just like the first time somebody might have asked for 6% in a listing presentation, or at a listing, that you push the contract across the table and you kind of see, is the client going to hit me? They're fearful of the ask. But if trust is in place, the consumer is going to trust the real estate professional that you should offer something to the buy side of the trade.
Ryan, how are you feeling about, as a consumer, paying that 5 or 6%?
Well, as a consumer, but also just as an anthropologist, I'll give you, I know this is going to sound strange, but I don't know if you know this or not, but if you say I'm sorry in a contentious situation, it reduces the potential for litigation substantially. And the same here is true. It's actually, someone said it in the comments. Trust is forged through transparency. I would say that consumers don't really know that those commissions were negotiable. And it's not because agents were bringing that up. And coming to Mark's point about behavior, if I said something, coming back to that original metaphor, something along the lines like, my name's Brian. I know, thanks for telling me all about you. I know so much about this neighborhood as it relates to you. Let me just be honest with you up front before we begin. That 3% is not mandatory. You can actually offer whatever you think is fair based on that. Just the psychology of that alone is going to make me want to be reciprocal to help. And that's transparency, and that moves to trust. Yes, absolutely. If I feel like I'm getting that value, absolutely.
Joe, let me go to you if I may, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but I referenced them as sort of plug and play networks. I was surprised last year to see the degree of migration of agents into affiliate brokerages such as Side, EXP, et cetera, et cetera. Is that a trend, or is that just a post-COVID thing?
I can't really speak for the other brokerages, but I can speak for us, which is noticing a trend and really trying to adapt to what we're seeing in California markets, which was a complete overhaul of the way we pay agents in those markets because of those migrations of agents to other agencies. So We, as you know, we had salaried agents for years. We still do, but we completely changed the structure of our own compensation in those markets to adapt, which is now to say, you get the best of being an employee agent, but you also get traditional splits, which is something in the past we hadn't offered before. And just by doing that, we've seen a caliber of agent that we never would have been able to recruit before. And some people that actually left Redfin because of the structure now came back to Redfin to work under that new compensation model.
Kamini, anything to add to that question?
No, I mean, I just think that it really comes back. I think we're circling kind of similar points, which is, raising the bar, really earning trust, proving value. And I think those are going to be, I think that there's a broker side to that, and there's an agent side to that, right? And as a professional full service brokerage, we have to do the work to make sure that our agents are set up to succeed. We have to earn their trust. We have to earn their business, right? And we have to provide them value in the same way that they have to do so for their clients. And I think that that's going to become increasingly important, because I do think that a critical part to being a good agent is having the right support structure in place. And I think it's, something that's going to become increasingly important is our ability to support our agents in being agents that actually bring something valuable to the table.
So if you nurture them, they won't flee.
Correct. Yeah.
Mark, anything to add?
I think one of the most valued components of a real estate brand is a sense of community. And the real estate professional joins that sense of community to collaborate, to exchange information. Vanessa Klein just put a thing in the chat there about collaboration is key. And when you get these decentralized models, I'm not going to name their names, it's hard to have that collaboration in a virtual model. And as markets tighten and information becomes a currency, you tend to move towards the best source of collaboration.
Interesting. Brian, I'm going to go to you, if I may. Just go straight hardcore technology. And I don't mean to be unfair, but try to stay inside real estate if you can. Big innovation coming down the pike like a tsunami that we need to be.
You know who's better to answer this is Mark, because Mark.
No, but I want to start with you, then I'll go to Mark.
Awesome. No, I do follow Mark in that regard as well, because I do want to stay connected in this front. I am curious to see what AI first real estate businesses look like. We have not yet seen that model. And so if you think about the disruptions in the past, they were web first, mobile first. Those models were disruptive in themselves. I'm curious to see what AI first is going to do. And yes, it's going to be disruptive.
Do you have any feeling as to what it might perhaps maybe feel like or look like?
Well, if you're a copywriter or a logo designer today, outside of real estate, your days are numbered.
Gone. Mark, bring us up to date.
Ouch. Technology. So what I share with our people is when they say, I've got enough technology, no more technology, please. It's not about the real estate professional, okay? It's about their client. Their client does not measure the technology stack of Compass versus Redfin or Compass versus Coldwell Banker when they're going through a transaction, because they're not using two of the three of those. They measure the impact of technology based on every other experience they have in their life. And that's the thing that the real estate professional has to keep in mind is you're not being benchmarked on brand A versus brand B. You're being benchmarked on life.
But my question is still my question. What's coming down? What's the wave going to look like?
Well,
where will we feel it as agents? Forget the consumer for a moment. As agents, where do we feel it?
I think COVID forced us, and I've talked with Brian about this a bunch. I think COVID forced us into a digital first environment. We got e-notary, we got e-filing of the title documents and titles. And so I think technology will reduce the friction in a real estate trade. And if you can reduce the friction, just think of paperwork. If you can reduce the friction, you create velocity. By creating velocity, you create liquidity, which essentially adds value to an asset class that doesn't have liquidity.
But that's happening now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what the next mean, I understand that now we have DocuSign and we've got those technology capabilities. What, for instance, will AI look like? Everybody says AI. What does it look like?
So, for example, if I had to mimic how consumers are making decisions in search today, so for example, I'll make the alignment here. If you're buying a $10,000 e-mountain bike, you in 2 years ago would have gone to Google and started to research, started to read reviews, started to watch YouTube videos. Now you go to ChatGPT or you go to Perplexity and you say, this is the criteria that I'm looking for. This is the location I'm in. These are the types of trails I'm looking to do. This is sort of the state of my writing maturity. And you let AI do all of the research for you. You could tell it to present to you the top 10 reviews for the bike that you think are 1, 2, and 3 choices. That's going to hit real estate. So if you think about your specialized bikes, for example, your strategy then is to invest in Google, to invest in media, to invest in editorial, to invest in videos that are going to show up on the other side of consumer searches. Now with AI, you don't know if you show up. You don't know how you show up. And so think about that level of disruption now when searching for agents, searching for homes, searching for mortgage information. That entire that entire outcome will be upended by AI doing this work for you.
So if I'm a consumer in 10 years, Brian, what might I do? I've just made a decision. I'm going to buy a house. What will that process then look like?
So in 10 years, it's not going to look like disruption's going to hit this industry, but from AI next year. Like,
all right, so 5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. I'll tell you, in 2 years, it's too hard to go out 5 years. We're accelerating way too fast. Innovation cycles have compressed. I can't even look out that far. In 1 year, AI is going to probably be able to complete the transaction from letting you know now's the time to buy to helping you find every resource necessary to buy that home, find that home. And AI will connect itself to other AI agents to lead through the journey. I don't know where human beings are going to show up in this process. It's called large action models, where we're seeing generative AI today as large language models. It will start taking actions for you.
Kamini, you're nodding your head. Add to this, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I agree with a lot of what has been said. You started your question off with using the word tsunami, right? Like, is there sort of this giant, overwhelming wave of change coming that's going to totally wash out the dynamic that exists today and replace it with something new? And I would say no. But I think that it is going to be sort of a continuation of a wave that we have seen, right? Which is that, again, data and information has been at people's fingertips in one form or another for a long time. There's going to be an increased simplification and streamlining and an increased ability to get the most relevant information really easily. And so real estate agents are not going to be able to lean on information as as something that they trade in, right? It's going to need to be much deeper than that. It's going to need to be based on advice and expertise that you cannot get from, even the most sophisticated AI modeled synthesis of relevant information. And so, I don't think that there is a literal tsunami coming. I think that it is a continuation of a wave that's been rolling for a while.
KAMINI talking about, actually, like Brian with offer insights. I love the idea of AI enhanced technology just to say which way the market's going and where you might want to come up with an offer. But I was listening to this song this morning by a band called the Beths. They're a New Zealand band, and the song is An Expert in a Dying Field. And I'm really hoping that 3 of the 4 of us are not in that category. I really feel like we're not. But at the same time, like, AI does exist now. Like, one of the more recent examples that we had was a product called Redfin Redesign, which, if you look at any property in the DMV footprint on the East Coast, you can change the countertops in real time on the website experience. You can change, of course, wall color and carpet color, or redesign it as a modern farmhouse. Like, I think these things, like to KAMINI's point, are all going to help the buyer along, but I still see the agent as a really important part of next steps after that.
Folks, we're at the 20-minute mark, and I've got so much more to go over, so I'm going to move very quickly here. Mark, quick question to you. As the middle class gets priced out of life, more and more as we see the delineation between extreme wealth and not a lot of wealth, and the middle class in the middle being middle. Does that portend bad things for real estate buying and selling in the future?
Well, you're talking about the affordability issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's a significant issue, and you combine that with the fact that I think we need 5 million more units in the United States. That's how far supply is behind demand. It will become very challenging, and you see it in resort communities today, whether it's a beach town or a ski town, where all the service industry is driving 90 minutes to and from work every day because they can't afford housing in that area. And that's a significant issue for the business. I mean, I live in Jackson, Wyoming, and the ski resort is building housing to put its employees in it. It's a very significant issue.
So again, 10 years out, is this a good business to be in?
Well,
From the viewpoint of the agent.
Yes, it will. To Brian's point, the mediocre will disappear, and the best will remain the best. And I don't see any industry in the world where the best doesn't command a compensation premium.
Okay, good lead into my next question. We did some research in the Bay Area. We took 11 counties and we took all the registered realtors, somebody who had a license through the registration channels, and we counted 82,000 people just in 11 counties in the Bay Area. When we went through, of course, we ended up with about 19,000 that had actually done some transactions, but it still struck me as being a very, very large number. I quoted this to you guys in the briefing document. There are two wonderful authors in London at Oxford, the Suskines, and I'm quoting what they said in their book. In an internet society, which we are right now, we will neither need nor want doctors, teachers, accountants, architects, the clergy, consultants, lawyers, and many others to work as they did in the 20th century. The implication being that they're going to either be washed out to sea or they're going to be leading different professional lives. Brian, any comments on that?
That's what a call out. We're always going to need people who are experts at a human level. I think it was KAMINI who said earlier that the people who use AI, for example, will be the most augmented over those who do not or use it very little. I'm going to give you a healthcare example. There's a company called Forward Health. You may know them in the Bay Area. They're trying to introduce proactive medicine, meaning that today we go to see a doctor when there's a problem. Nobody likes the system. Now they're introducing doctors in a box. So at a mall, at a business campus near you, you will have an AI-powered doctor. You walk in the room, they can do blood tests. They'll probably be also be able to do therapy at some high level. You're still going to have a human being on the other side of that. It will be the doctors that understand how to work with AI in this new environment versus those who are saying, no, I'm going to do what I do and AI will never be able to replace me. So there will be doctors who also go away as well. So yes, this technology is going to change the dynamic of how we work with professionals. And that's why, what I don't hear enough of are agents, for example, saying, tell me how to be better with AI. What are some of the prompts I need to start using? What are some of the skill sets I need to have 1, 2, 3, 5 years from now where the trends are going?
And by the way, the Suskines don't say that the professional will go away. They just say the professional will change. So I'm hearing you agree with them.
Yeah.
Mark, any comments to add to that?
I agree with what Brian said. Yeah.
KAMINI?
Yeah, I mean, listen, nobody is going to operate the same way as we have in the past. I mean, change is one of the only constants in life, right? Change, death, and taxes. So I don't actually find that statement to be particularly revelatory. I mean, it's yes, this is true. And I think that the only thing that we need to keep in mind, right, is that, again, many of these professions have been operating in the past with a monopoly on information that has not been true for a long time, and it will continue to be less true. And so the value that you're going to need to bring to the table will be different. As a doctor, you will need to be prepared to be able to deal with a more informed patient who might have more opinions than they would have had 30 years ago, right? As a real estate agent, the same thing. So yeah.
The concerning implication out of the Suskines is that you'll pay the agent less. You'll pay the professional less because their role will be less important. Is that unfair?
I think that their role will be different. It doesn't mean that it's going to be less important, right? I mean, I heard a great example the other day, right? When you so there was a lot, call it 20 years ago, right? There was when the FCC decided that pharmaceutical companies could advertise directly to consumers, right? It was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? The consumer is going to be able to see a commercial about a drug, and the role of the doctor is going to be changed forever. Well, the reality is, I see a pharmaceutical company commercial, right, for a particular drug. I'm like, oh, I've actually had this like weird itch for a while. Do I go to the pharmacy and demand that drug? No, I go to my doctor and I say, hey, I'm a more informed consumer because of this piece of content that I have absorbed, and I've connected that with my own symptoms, and I'm going to ask you for your professional advice to get to the next step in the journey, right? And I think that it really is just a continuation of that dynamic. It's not that we're going to pay them less by default. It is that they're going to need to bring something different to the table. The conversation is different. Dynamic is different. The value add is different.
Right. Joe, I want to start with you and then Kamini and then to you, Mark, if I may. Let's take the successful agent going forward in terms of behavior and performance. What are the characteristics we're looking for? I put a couple down here. We're seeing a move towards team structures. The good top producers are very early adopters of technology. They're migrating to specialty real estate practices. They've got high IQ. They can develop trust. I want to start with you, Joe. In your experience touching a lot of agents across the Redfin network, the ones that stand out who have got a grasp of the future, what are the defining characteristics? Give me the bullet points.
They're self-aware, so they know their own value proposition, but can also tie it to what really matters to them in a way that it connects with their clients. But there's another element to it where it's about like where the business comes from, where to your question about what do the best do? The best bring a book of business, and that's true of most agents that do high volume, but they also probably supplement it in a way where they're partnered with, let's say a major portal or different revenue sources to be able to work that business and convert it at a really high rate. Anyone can take a lead off of the internet, but the ones that convert those at a high level and bring a book of business are the most successful. And I also just think it brings up the point about like, how much are you paying those referral websites out of commission? Because to the points earlier about pay, if you're paying 40% just to generate a client that may or may not close with you, that seems like a pretty steep price.
But Joe, let me just go back a little bit granular, if I may. Think of an agent in the Redfin network that you've said to yourself, God, if I could just clone her or clone him, I'm made. What does that person look like?
The thing that
what
stands
defines
out
that person?
The most is that they're all different from one another, but they all have control over their message. They use specific words at specific points of the customer's journey, and they do it time and time and time again to the point where it's complete second nature. And they found the recipe and they've tweaked it enough times where those are the words that win and they use them and it works.
Kamini, same question.
Yeah, I think that it is commitment and engagement with the profession. The real estate industry is one that has a lot of slashies, right? I live in Los Angeles, so I'm an actress / real estate agent. I'm a writer / real estate agent. And I really think the successful agent of the future is one that understands that this is a craft. It is a profession. It is a profession of professionals. And so those who are committed and engaged, again, not afraid of the pace of change, but willing to commit to stay ahead of the pace of change and really understand their value proposition, right? What is their relevance to their consumer? Why are they credible? Why are they differentiated? What do they charge and why do they charge it? That's what really sets those folks apart. I think you see there are extremely successful real estate agents who do a couple $1 billion in transactions a year, and they're extremely successful real estate agents who do far less than that. But I think the red thread really is that commitment and that engagement.
So Kamini, if tomorrow you could get a message out to all the Coldwell Banker Realty agents, and you could say to them, here are 3 things you must do to prep yourself for the next 2, 5 years, whatever it is. What would those be?
Yeah, so the three things are prepare your 30-second, 3-minute, and 30-minute value proposition pitch, right? So 30-second, you're standing in line for a drink at a bar. You strike up a quick conversation while you're waiting for your glass of Chardonnay. What are you going to say to somebody to introduce yourself as a real estate professional that they're going to want to have another conversation with? The 3-minute, right? So the second thing is the 3 minutes. So you are riding in an elevator with somebody, you have a couple of more minutes to share some relevant details that'll set you up for the third thing, which is that 30-minute value proposition discussion. Your 30-second and your 3-minute have paid off. You have 30 minutes to sit in front of somebody, whether it's for a listing presentation or a buyer engagement session, and you need to be able to be prepared for all three of those things.
Would I be unfair to ask you what your 30-minute pitch is?
We don't have 30 minutes. We only have 9.
I mean, 30 seconds. I meant 30 seconds. Sorry.
Mine for me
Yes.
personally. Well,
Yeah.
I don't buy or sell. I don't buy or sell homes. I'm not a licensed real estate
Yeah,
agent.
it was an unfair question. Mark, same question. What is that? What does that agent? What does that successful agent look like going forward?
Yeah, if it's three things, I would say, first of all, we sell homes, not houses, and we're in the people business. So we need to be sensitive to people. Invest in relationships, focus on curated content, and do your business eyeball to eyeball. I think those are three things that are just super important. And it's transitioning from a one-to-many marketing campaign, if you will, to a one-to-one. You know, one size doesn't fit all, one size fits one. And I read this great article last week about marketing to the uber wealthy. And if you send all of your clients a picture of a beautiful scotch and a beautiful watch, I'm going to ignore you because I ride an e-bike like Brian and I drink tequila. So you lost me. Like you need to curate your marketing campaigns to each human being. And AI will help you do that.
Because it is legitimately one-to-one marketing. Brian, help me. We've got a Lego set or a Meccano set of pieces. Put these together now and sort of give me some dimension for what the agent's going to look like going out, as distinct from how they look like today. What's the new agent? How do we craft and construct the new agent? It could be demographics. It could be how they think, how they behave. I don't care. Trying to get a feel for what it looks like.
Well, to build on what everyone's saying here, we are in a people business, and these are real big decisions. You know, besides for those who are just flipping homes or Airbnb owners. This is one of life's biggest purchases. Definitely one of life's biggest sales. I think the agent of the future has to do something that they haven't been willing to do in the last 20 years, and that is to become technology driven. It is now like breathing. It is second nature. And most agents, I've spoken to some of the biggest real estate agent conferences in the country. Most are very reticent to embrace technology. They found every reason why not to do it over the last several iterations of technology innovation. AI is going to be the one that it just makes it pass or fail. And so what I would start doing is looking for ways, even asking the AI, what are some of the ways as a real estate agent I can start adding value to today's discerning consumer? I'd feed AI every link I could find on the changing consumer behaviors and preferences in the real estate industry. I would look at complementary industries in the consumer preferences, and I would let AI start to guide me. I would ask AI, what are the skills that I need to move forward? And start getting, just even though the answers may not be exactly what you need, you're going to actually start to learn subconsciously how to start collaborating with artificial intelligence. And even in that, you are going to be stronger for it. And the more you do it, the more ideas are going to unlock. And the more ideas that are going to unlock, the more new behaviors, the new more pursuits you start to embrace. And it is, let me tell you, it's less painful to use ChatGPT than it was to try to figure out how to create a TikTok video.
Joe, let's add to that. Add to the skeleton, this agent of the future. Put some flesh and some tissue on the skeleton.
More so than the ability to work both a book of business and
Yes.
context from the internet.
Yes.
I just want to go back to words that win then. I don't know, it's like a broken record here too, but I think it's just like that self-awareness aspect too, and actually knowing what to say. And maybe just to be more specific, the consistent theme throughout those words, especially at a first meeting, we talked about trust earlier, is really just some version of like, we've got this and I've got you, I'm here for you. And it sounds very romantic. I know it sounds very high level too, but when you say that in a way where you're speaking with confidence and the customer can feel that, uh, it is still residential real estate. It's a very heavy emotional process. And when you have a partner in that search with them that can say that with confidence, I think that yes, it's the agent of the future, but it's also the agent now.
KAMINI?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's kind of like what I said before, right? It's just understanding how to make technology superpower the process that you already have, right? How to stay ahead of the pace of change to make sure that you aren't a laggard, and how to really bring value to the table.
Mark?
If you think you're close to your clients, get closer.
And you would get closer by how?
Eyeball to eyeball.
Got it. Mark, you have children?
This is a trick question, Alf. Yes, 3.
Do you want them to become realtors?
2 of them already are.
Okay, and why not the third?
Because he saw how hard his mom and dad worked.
Okay. The 2 that are there, did they go there because of your advice, or was it organic, as they say?
They are partnering with their mom, one in Aspen and one in Marin County.
All right,
And,
so I'm being trying to be cute, but the real question is, would you advise your kids to do you want your kids to grow up to be realtors?
I am very optimistic about the real estate professional's future, to the point where everybody should think about succession planning.
Good. KAMINI. Do you have children?
Yes, I have a 5-month-old. She doesn't even know how to roll over yet. So having a little bit of trouble picturing what she might decide to pursue as a professional interest. I also have a 7-year-old who Mark has met, who is very personable. She's great at the eyeball to eyeball conversation. So I could actually see her being a thriving real estate agent. And I think it is a profession that represents a lot of hope for a lot of people. There are more single mothers thriving in this profession than any other professional, white
Good
collar
point.
profession in the United States of America. It's the largest class of entrepreneurs in the United States economy. It's a profession that represents a lot of hope and a lot of possibility for a lot of people who are locked out of other professions for various reasons. And so I absolutely think it is a fantastic profession for anybody who wants to commit to it.
It's actually a noble profession. Once we get rid of all the criticism, it's a very noble profession. We can't always say that about attorneys and other professional people. Joe, children?
Yeah, I have 3 kids, and I love what you just said about noble work. It really is good work. And we talk about this as a sizable transaction, but it's really just the heaviness that comes from moving into a neighborhood. But yeah, I certainly would recommend it. I also have to say that my dad's a broker too, so he didn't encourage me to get in. That's the same way when you said organic, I would prefer to do it, is like, I'm definitely cool with it, but let's let them find it on their own.
Brian, I'm not asking you to send your children to realtor school, but do you have kids?
I do. 11 and 8.
So what are you going to advise them to do as a futurist?
Well, I'm going to answer the question to tell you a quick story. I used to advise the former CEO of Mercedes-Benz, and he and I got into a very deep discussion about the coming wave of AI and robotics. This is about 5 years ago. And he said, "Let me tell you a story about what's weighing on me as a leader. My daughter went to school for her life to be a radiologist. And she already knows that job is going to be replaced by AI, and she's going back to school to figure out her next 2.0 incarnation. That's real. The question you're asking is very real. And for his own daughter to have to reset her life is a pretty big deal. So let me tell you what I'm doing with my 11 and 8-year-old. Every weekend we host a generative AI class. We're working on looking at ways not for AI to do your homework, but for AI to augment your capacity, your thinking, your critical thinking, your ability to think about outcomes differently. That's the real estate agent of the future. It's value add.
Panel, this has been a great discussion. I've got so many more questions. It would take another 2 hours, and we have to be fair to you and be fair to our audience. Thank you very, very much for wonderful discussion, and some really great learning as well, and some stuff to take away and think about, because we have to go back to the salt mines every day. With that, we're gonna close this down. I want to thank our friends at HSBC. Obviously, I want to remind you all that there will be a Zoom link coming out this afternoon or tomorrow. It'll be called Luxstream. Look for it in your spam folder, and please take the words you've used today, 2 of them in particular, AI, and let's see what we can do with them going forward. And panel, I thank you all very much. I've pulled you away from important meetings. Thank you for being with us today. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Goodbye, you all.